Hi, this is Christopher Sean, Kaz from Star Wars Resistance. And I want to invite you to join me on Saturday, September 17th for Podathon 2022. I'll be hanging with my friends from Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. And I want to see you there. Podathon is a day-long charity podcasting event that raises money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. The day is going to be filled with amazing shows, awesome guests, and lots of fun. Mark your calendars now and visit www.thepodathon.com for more information about the event and how you can donate directly to Make-A-Wish. Can't wait to see you there, and hey, may the Force be with you.
Gentlemen, it's been a bit of a slow news week in nerd culture.
Yeah.
Well, after the insanity of the Warner Brothers Discovery shakeup, I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah, makes sense. But this has also given us a chance to catch up on some things that we've been meaning to watch, like the Light and Magic series on Disney+.
Yeah, it's really good. And Nate finally got to finish watching E.T.
That's right. Yeah. One word reaction.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah,
Fantastic.
It was good. So after seeing it in IMAX, I think that we've become more convinced than ever that E.T. is part of the Star Wars universe.
Yep.
We're going to talk about that and more next. This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was
You started today.
I did.
How'd that go?
Fine.
Well, got candy in your mouth. Literally, you're holding. You have the lollipop end in your mouth.
It fell out, and I'm not going to throw it away. So,
all right.
You mean he started today as of like recording day?
As recording day. Yeah, absolutely. Yesterday for you
yesterday.
listening. With this, Sam, you start today, which is tomorrow.
Yes.
It's got to be your bowl. With that, so a little bit easier load.
I think the classes are going to be harder, but I have less course load. That's good. And
you're continuing your internship.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And are you the vice president?
I'm the co-president of AIAA.
Wait. When did this happen?
Like a month or so ago.
You're the
I was the VP, but he said you're going to basically be doing the president basically said you're basically going to be doing what I'm doing anyway. So I'm going to make you co-president. Plus, it looks better on a resume anyway.
So you're co-president of the University of South Alabama Launch Society.
AIAA, which is over Launch Society and Design Build Fly.
Well, that's pretty cool.
So, yeah, no pressure.
Yeah, imagine being the dad, all of you listening right now, imagine being the dad of a rocket scientist.
I'm not.
It's intimidating. All right. Welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast, the only fan podcast to name a canon Star Wars creature and to be endorsed by the writer-director of The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, that there is a story, it is written on our souls, and that these myths speak to that story, and that is why we talk about Star Wars and Marvel and DC and all these other epic franchises that you all love so much, that we love so much.
We do.
I'm David. I'm the dad.
Hi, Dad.
Hello, gentlemen. And I'm honored to be joined every week by my two amazing sons, BB Nate.
Yeah.
E.T.
Yeah, did y'all know that E.T. is actually a good movie?
It's a fantastic
More
movie.
people
Like
should
you
watch
said.
it. Yeah.
More people should watch it.
Yeah.
That's right. Samuel the Hutt.
Nate, you might notice a little bit of a similarity in the storyline I'm talking about today to something in DC. I know, big shocker. Marvel copying DC. Never happened before.
Interesting. I'm looking forward to that
Dad?
now. Yeah. I've decided that no human being has made a greater contribution to the art of filmmaking than crazy Uncle George.
Yeah.
After that, I can't imagine anybody else having made a more. After we watched Light and Magic, BB Nate, you can argue against that in a little bit. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Please follow the show on whatever podcast app you're listening to it on. We would definitely appreciate that. That way you wouldn't miss a single episode, including all the details and the final episode after Podathon, because Christopher Sean will be on our show after Podathon, because we're not going to share that episode before then.
Right.
That would be defeating what's going on in Podathon. But we want you to tune into Podathon 2022. It's September 17th. It begins at 9 a.m. Eastern time. We were a part of some big announcements over the last couple of weeks. Yep. Obviously, the big headliner for this is the person we reference at the opening of every episode of our show. You actually hear him on every episode of the show endorsing Tatooine Sons.
Yeah.
The writer-director of The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson, who also directed Knives Out, which is fantastic. Looper, Jumper, and not Jumper. He didn't do Jumper. That's Hayden Christensen that was in Jumper.
Yes.
There's another one that he did, and I can't remember what it is, and I always get that.
But he's doing Glass Onion.
And he's doing Glass Onion. That comes out soon. I haven't even seen a trailer for that yet.
No, they haven't released a trailer yet.
I'm ready for a trailer.
Me too.
Yeah, me too.
With it. Our guest will be the amazing Christopher Sean, who played Kaz in Star Wars Resistance, and he was also in Star Wars Visions, and he's playing Nightwing.
Yes.
In Gotham Knights.
The new game, not the TV show. Right?
What's the hype around that game, BB Nate?
Mixed. It was really negative at the beginning, and I understood why. I wasn't super excited, but more gameplay has come out, more trailers and everything, and it seems like that they've...
What was the reason that there was
it
negative
seemed
hype?
like it was going to be the Avengers game all over again.
Okay.
Oh.
But it's changed now.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get that vibe at all. I
no,
think
from now it's a lot better.
We're actually the first podcast on the roster for Podathon.
Wow, no pressure.
2022. So after the kickoff show at 9 a.m., they kick right over to us with Christopher Sean at 9:20 a.m. We're followed up by Coffee with Kenobi. A little bit later is going to be Star Wars Explained, a bunch of amazing shows. They had some announcements this week.
Okay.
New guests.
Okay.
Kristen Baver, the host of This Week in Star Wars, is going to be on that. That's a huge guest.
That's awesome.
From this. That's official Lucasfilm staff being a part of this.
Yeah.
A celebrity from Lucasfilm in some ways. One of the most amazing and cool people in all of Star Wars. She's awesome. She had a birthday last week.
Happy birthday.
So happy birthday, Kristen. She's going to be on Tarkin's Top Shelf a little bit later in the day. And then they made the announcement today. Gary Whitta is going to be the guest of Followers on the Force. If you're not familiar with who Gary Whitta is, he was one of the writers of Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. He worked right alongside Tony Gilroy on the changes that happened. So I think all of the Andor stuff, he could have some inside scoop on that. He also wrote 4 episodes of Star Wars Rebels, some of the best episodes in that series, which is our favorite. It's probably the best animated series in Star Wars history. Can we agree?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you agree with that?
Definitely.
He wrote The Book of Eli.
Great
The
movie.
The movie?
Yes,
Wow.
the movie The Book of Eli. He's the screenwriter on
That's a
it.
fantastic movie.
Nate,
Fantastic.
you love that movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
And it was going to be a comic, so that's cool too.
Yeah, awesome. And he's was a regular writer on The Walking Dead. So
Nice.
this is a big deal, guys.
Yeah,
He's going to be on
that's
Followers
huge.
of the Force. And there are so many more big announcements to come. There's one being teased right now by our buddies over at the Bombad Cast, Scotty J. Rowe and Jerry. And I cannot... I have a suspicion who it could be, but no one will tell me. And so I'm not going to be able to, I don't want to tip it, because if I'm wrong, this would be a big wrong. But I think they're announcing it Friday night. So keep an eye on that. You can check out what's going on
Harrison
Around the
Ford.
Galaxy. No, it's not going to be that. No. But this is a big announcement. So, and we've got a lot more to come. I know the list. I've seen the roster. It freaking feels like Star Wars Celebration happening
crazy.
that day.
That's great.
So I'm very excited about that. But enough talking about what we're going to talk about. Let's talk about what we're talking about. Did I get it
Yeah,
right?
you did it. Good job, Dad.
That's right. Awesome.
You're never confident about it, though. You always ask us afterwards.
I get it out and I'm like, wait, it just came out of my mouth. Anyway, BB Nate, take it away.
All right. Well, I saw E.T. for the first time all the way through a few nights ago, and it was great. But one thing kept sticking out to me. Is E.T. actually a Star Wars movie?
E.T. from home.
Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah, I can fly.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way. People in this room, which one is A, wearing a spangly outfit, and B, not of use?
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
That man has no limits.
Back when I was a kid. Back when I was a little kid. The big deal at Universal Studios. I don't know if it's still this way or not, but
I don't think ET's
the ET ride at Universal Studios was a big deal, and they would select a child out of the audience during the presentation to actually come up and ride the bike with ET.
Oh, cool!
And be like, they would show the how they filmed that and all that. Well, when Mom was a little girl, like really little, Mom was the one called out of the audience. To be
that's
Elliot,
so cool
for that. She was very excited to talk about that at lunch today.
She was. She's mentioned it many times.
Every time we talk about ET, she says she came with us to the movie theater.
She did. She enjoyed it. Well, she said it was super slow. But
well, a lot of 80s movies are slower burns.
We call it letting it breathe. With that, so like a nice red wine.
Yeah.
So anyway, BB Nate, take it away.
All right.
Okay, there.
Nice.
Wow.
Oh my god!
I have no idea what
that's what happens when you eat a lollipop.
No, it wasn't
in the
that.
Just
my throat just suddenly went dry. Okay, so Sammy, rating of ET 1 to 10 Reese's Pieces.
Reese's Pieces. That's okay. I gotta give it like an 8.5. I think it was.
So you're gonna eat half of a Reese's Piece?
Yes,
you can do it.
You can do it. You just use your old front teeth and just nibble at it. Gosh, no, I think it's a absolute classic. One of the greatest movies of all time. I wouldn't want to watch it like super often. Like, every once in a while is great.
Like you could throw on Rogue One and it's cool.
Right.
You could throw on Solo and it's cool. This one's not one you can do that with.
But I mean, absolutely amazing story. I'm sure you'll talk about this, or maybe, I don't know. But that movie would not be what it is today without John Williams' score.
Yeah. John Williams is a genius.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most iconic scenes in film history is in that movie, and it would not be the same without his score.
That score,
yeah, it's great.
Absolutely,
Dad.
It's hard for me.
This is a childhood movie.
It is a childhood movie, and that makes it big.
This is a classic childhood movie.
So the story behind this movie is my sister was 10 years older than me, so she was in high school when this movie came out. I was still a little kid. I was terrified of this movie. It does
have some intense moments.
The trailer was terrifying, and he was scaring. He was a scary looking creature, and I was like 6.
Oh yeah, he's pretty
6 or 7. I don't remember what year this came out, but I was really little, and I kept seeing the trailers, and I thought this was a horror movie. I had no desire to go see this. My mom and my sister had to go out of town for a weekend to go to some competition that my sister was in. And my dad worked 70, 80 hours a week. He didn't spend, we didn't spend a ton of time. We never went to movies together, which is, I think, one of the reasons that I like going to movies with you guys so much, because that was something I really was a memory. When we did go to movies, it was an event for us. And he picked me up from school the day that this movie came out. And he said some friends of his told him that there's this movie coming out he wants to take me to go see. And so I was like, great, let's go to the movies. We show up at the theater and it's E.T. And I'm scared, but I'm like, I'm trying not to be scared.
Right.
Like, I don't want to tell my dad I'm scared of this movie he wants to take me to. So we go, I am shaking. And those opening scenes when you're already scared of this movie, he's a scary looking creature. He's screaming at Elliot and all that kind of stuff. So I see this movie and man, I bawled like a baby in this movie and I cheered at the end, and my mom and my sister came back in town the next day and we picked them up from the airport, and I had talked my dad into taking them to the movie. And so we watched it all over again, and I'm sitting there watching them watch the movie, and they get to the scene where he dies and the scene comes back to life and all this, and I'm watching their reactions and I'm just giddy because I know what their reactions are going to be. So for me, all of that combining with amazing movie, right? It's a great movie. You say
got all that nostalgia.
I have no problem with somebody putting that at an 8.5. This is like a 10 for me because there's so many memories in it.
Yeah,
and
makes sense.
Most you don't remember this, but it's the first movie you saw in theaters.
Yeah,
Sam.
I don't remember that.
So it was doing I think the 25th anniversary or something like that, and it was the first movie you went to that you were actually able to watch,
right?
With it, and so it was a big deal. BB Nate, you remember the first movie you went to the movie theaters and actually watched?
I know you told me. I don't remember it though.
It's the Clone Wars animated film, which is on its anniversary.
I remember like going to it, and I remember an image from it, but I don't remember the actual going to the movie itself.
Anyway, all of that was a long story for me to give it an 11 on a scale of 1 to 10. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I'd have to give it. It's always been a struggle to watch it. I've started it so many times.
Explain kind of what's going on.
So I've started it so many times, and something somehow always comes up to where I'm not able to finish it, and then I just forget about it, and I just don't finish it. I remember like one of the first times I was watching it, we lived at Flowering Almond.
Wow, that was a long time ago.
And we were moving to the RV.
Wow, a long time ago.
And so I was sitting on the couch. You guys were doing stuff. You let me take a break. And so I started. I'm like, okay, I'll watch E.T. because it was on. And so I started watching. I'm like, dang, this is a good movie. And then I got basically to the part, I think, where he fakes his sickness.
Okay.
Oh, Elliot does. Okay.
Yeah, and I get to that part, and you're like, we need your help. And so I turned it off. And then I tried to do it a few years later, and we had something else come up. And so it's always like I have never been able to watch it. So I got to see it for the first time in IMAX, which is great.
Yeah,
it looks fantastic in IMAX. And it is a great movie. I mean, you like Sam said, you have John Williams' score, which is fantastic. You have a great story. Whatever the kid's name is, great acting.
Yeah,
Henry Thomas. Yeah,
that's what I thought it was. He did a great job. It's just a lot of fun, and yeah, I'd have to give it a 9.
The puppet for E.T. is incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. The special effects in this. Big shout out to ILM and to obviously Steven Spielberg, but to Kathleen Kennedy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
she helped making this what it is. She had to come up with a few ideas for it, but yeah, I'd have to give it a 9. It was great. I enjoyed it a lot.
Awesome.
But the main thing that we're talking about here is how E.T. is a Star Wars movie. Mm-hmm. The biggest indication that these are set in the same universe is that we actually see the species of E.T. in Phantom Menace. And that's not something that you can really ignore in this
topic.
Do
we know what the name of the species is?
We do. I don't remember what it was, though. I looked it up and I totally forgot to put it in the notes. Okay. But it was mentioned in a Legends novel what the species name was. So do you all think that this is basically confirmation that they are set in the same universe?
I mean, I don't think you can really... It's undeniable.
Yeah.
I mean... That is just proof, unless somehow you really twist it.
It's canon.
Yeah.
It's canon.
You could have done this in an Is It Canon segment.
It is. They're the Asogian or Sogian species. Yeah. It's listed in both in Legends and in canon on Wikipedia. So.
Very interesting. Yeah, I definitely think this is a big confirmation for that. Unless E.T. is somehow like... You really retcon it and it's like a fantastical story that someone in Star Wars makes up. But yeah, I think it's definitely in the same universe.
I do too. I think it makes sense. And I think watching the movie now as an adult in IMAX and being able to see things, hear the music, we'll talk about that, I'm sure. All of those pieces of the puzzle, I think that it feels like it's in Star Wars.
Yep.
Like it's like thousands of years later or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And we're on Earth and
they just happen to
And
explore.
he's visiting and exploring this part of the galaxy.
They finally reached this part of the galaxy.
Yeah.
Oh no, this galaxy. Because remember, it's in a galaxy far, far away too. So it's not even.
So that's awesome.
Way.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of music, Yoda is actually in the E.T. Kinda. A kid is dressed up as Yoda. Honestly, great costume.
Yeah, it was pretty solid.
Looked really good. And E.T. takes a strange liking to him. Kind of like he knows him, but. We also hear Yoda's theme being played at that moment, which was awesome to hear. And I mean, even the soundtrack just gives so many Star Wars vibes. Honestly, all John Williams soundtracks sound the same. Not a problem.
Well, he has a lot of motifs.
He has a lot of the same things that, like, you listen to the love theme from Indiana Jones and the Han and Leia's love theme, they sound so
very similar.
Well,
they start with the same notes. So
that's true.
Yeah, he uses. But do y'all think that E.T. knew Yoda personally? Because we don't know how old his species can live when they're not on Earth or whatever. Did you think he knew him personally or just from stories?
That's a great question. I would say, let me back up though. It was funny how on Friday and Saturday and Sunday of last week, there was like this running story on Twitter about people going and seeing E.T.
Yeah, of course.
And how so many people had never noticed the Yoda theme in this scene.
Really?
Until they heard it in IMAX.
Huh.
I mean, we've joked about this. We taught you guys are massive music score fans and all that. Not I mean, you're okay in movie musicals, but you're not movie musical fans, are you?
Not as much as a good old soundtrack.
Music scores from movies, very different with that. But you guys are big fans of that. You guys noticed it as soon as you heard it. Right?
Oh yeah, immediately.
Had you ever noticed it before, Sam?
No, but I haven't seen this movie in
Since you were little. Okay.
Years. Now, I don't know if that's just because it was in IMAX that a lot of people are noticing it. Maybe that's how we noticed it. But I think largely it is, we're huge Star Wars fans. We've heard that theme hundreds of times now. So, of course, we're going to notice it in there. So, yeah, I thought it was really cool that John did that.
My headcanon is that E.T. knows Yoda.
Yeah.
I don't think you see a ton of like stories about, I mean, I'm sure there's stories about Yoda, but the species is doubled in the last few years or not doubled. We've only known 2 before this, right? So it's like a third larger in the species. We had Yoda and Yaddle.
Yeah.
Right. Now we have Grogu.
It's grown 33%.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah. So there's not a ton of them out there. I think that he had to have like known Yoda. He seemed to recognize him. It was like he was going to see a friend. Like he was using that friend to go home. With it. It was a really cool moment. In the theaters originally when I first saw it, it was a cool moment, but it's even a better moment being such a massive Star Wars fan now.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I definitely think he's at least familiar with Yoda. I feel like this would, if we're saying it takes place in Star Wars, takes place thousands of years later, and I don't think E.T. was around when Yoda was around.
But we don't know
That's true.
The age
we don't.
On the species.
So. He looks old to me.
They all do.
Well, yeah, they all do. I guess in my head, it would be either the species has continued to grow, Yoda's species, and they're all over now because it's been thousands of years. Yeah. That's very possible. Or the legend of Yoda was so strong that it's taught thousands of years later. I mean, we still talk about characters from thousands of years ago now. It's not crazy.
Yeah, no.
Granted, we don't really have good pictures of most of them, but in the Star Wars, I think that works.
Well, if we see Ewan McGregor dressed up as Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan Kenobi, we think he's Jesus.
Yeah. So. But I think that he just knew for the story.
Blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus.
Right, yeah.
Right, not the Jewish Jesus. Yeah, that's very different. Anyway,
I think he's just familiar with Yoda from the stories, or at least the species. But he's definitely familiar. I thought at first that maybe he saw a figure, when Elliot was showing him all the little toys in the meeting, but he never actually shows him a Yoda figure, I don't think.
Well, and he flat out, he's like, home. Yeah. He's saying home.
Yeah, because he's seen them at home. Yeah.
I mean, suspend some disbelief right now, but if E.T. was old enough to know Yoda, could one of those people we see in Phantom Menace be E.T.?
Easy.
Absolutely.
In the little, he's a like an ambassador or something.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it's true. And I love the fact that Steven Spielberg had such a close relationship with George Lucas and love for the Star Wars story that he included E.T. or he included Yoda in E.T.
And vice versa.
And that George Lucas has so much love for Steven Spielberg that he included E.T. in the Phantom Menace. It's really cool. And having watched Light and Magic too, that relationship is even more front and center in our minds.
Yeah, so. Very much so. I mean, this is a big deal too. E.T. uses the Force in this movie, a form of it at least. He lifts objects. It's pretty standard. Uses force healing in a certain way, if you think about it.
That's true.
And he connects with minds telepathically.
I like it.
So is E.T. a Jedi, or is the Force just a more common power in the future that people can tap into?
I don't think it's either. Maybe his species is just more in tune with the Force. I mean, we know that there are species that are generally more inclined to using the Force and stuff. Right, So I think his species just happens to be more in tune with the Force, and it's become a part of their culture and stuff. That's probably how they, do the weird homing beacon thing.
Turn on your heart light. Sorry.
Was that from the credits or something?
No, that was like a song Neil Diamond did when that movie came out. Let it shine wherever you go.
I can mute you, right?
No, that's good. That's
all
good.
Right.
Gonna take a ride across the world, you and me. Sorry.
You done?
Yeah.
All right.
That was good.
Hold the power here.
But yeah, I mean, you can't tell me that's not the Force.
Oh,
I
no,
mean,
it is.
Oh, it's totally the Force.
Totally the Force.
I don't think he has to be a Jedi. We've learned in the stories in the Star Wars universe, as the Star Wars universe has expanded, lots of beings have access to the ability to use the Force. I think that that's great, but I do think that it sort of plays into this idea that E.T. is part of is in the Star Wars universe. The fact that he does all those things.
Got midichlorians and all that.
It is fun to think that he used Force healing, though.
It is.
Yeah, that explains it.
It is. Yes.
And him and Elliot were a dyad in the
Yes,
Force.
they were a dyad. That
Yeah, that's why they had the connection.
Nice.
But the one thing that kind of pokes a hole in this idea is, how did the universe of Star Wars, the stories and everything, get to Earth?
No, they just happened to create a mockumentary that was 100% accurate to Star Wars.
There's actually that fan film we watched a few years ago. I don't know if you remember it.
It's that
where like
weird
the father or the grandfather had this archeological Raiders of the Lost Ark story where they find this Star Destroyer buried in the sands, and she's the mother, the wife it becomes the mother of George Lucas, and George Lucas
tells the story.
She tells the stories to him, and that's where he comes up with Star Wars. That's where he comes with Raiders of the Lost Ark.
So
and all of these.
Make
so we made that the bridge to these universes, and
because Indiana Jones.
It's actually a pretty good Star Wars fan film.
It is.
Honestly.
It's a great one. Yeah. Whatever it was called, it was good.
I think it was Odyssey,
something like that. It was a lot of fun, but. That's just the thing that kind of pokes a hole in it, because we don't have any confirmation on how that would work out. But do you think there's any way we see more of E.T. or his species in the Star Wars universe? Maybe a show or something? Maybe just a little appearance in Mandalorian here and there, or maybe something in Book of Boba Fett, or Bad Batch maybe? Yeah,
it would be easy for them to throw one of his species in there. But something about it almost feels irreverent at this point. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it's older, and it's just you just need to let it lie in a way. I mean, they could, and I think it'd be fun, but I think we've gotten enough to say, look, this happens in Star Wars. It's the same universe. That's all we need.
I don't want them to just do a little background character with this.
So you're
going to do it, you have to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like you need Kevin Scott to do a one-off Star Wars Adventures series with 3 episodes where he makes an E.T. Jedi in the High Republic era.
I love it.
Or something like that.
Please do it.
And yeah, I mean, if you're going to do it, you do it, right? And you just don't even apologize for it.
Do you think
you're like, this is total fan service. This is for all. Let's celebrate.
People would love it.
Let's celebrate the 40th anniversary of E.T. by honoring Steven Spielberg and this great movie, and just go for it. So,
and then create the show Master E.T. where he's training Padawan.
Maybe Turbis the Porg can help him.
There we go.
Great. Yes,
I like that.
That'd be fantastic.
Is that it?
Yes, that's about it.
Wow.
Good segment.
Good segment. You were worried about this segment.
I was worried.
It was a good segment.
I had to fill in some spots, but I think
great.
Yeah, E.T. is a great character and a ton of fun, and I wouldn't mind seeing more of him if it works. It's just kind of fun to think about this type of stuff.
It absolutely is.
And we just added another movie into the Star Wars.
The one that's set the latest in the Star Wars universe.
So it comes after Rise of Skywalker. Right.
Way after the Ninth Jedi, even.
Yeah, way back there.
That's good. Speaking of, is it canon? I've hit the random article button on Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
So what do the official archives have for us this week on Is It Canon? We'll find out next.
This is not going to go the way you think.
All right. We've been doing this segment for a few weeks now. And so I think you guys, if you're regular listeners, know what we're doing here. But if you're new to the show, here's how the segment works. I give a description of something I found on Wiki, 2E's, and then the Sons make an argument for whether or not they think it's canon or legends and why. Are you guys ready?
Yes, sir.
You're not looking at the notes?
Haven't looked at the notes. Will not be looking at the notes.
No cheating? All right. Here we go. It's The Gathering.
Wow, that's real specific.
I'll give you some more details. The Gathering was the name given to the assemblage of the full Jedi High Council. As the Jedi Masters arrived in the High Council chamber, they would remain standing until the full council was present, and then they would proceed to speak the traditional mantra of the council before sitting. Is it canon or is it legends?
Legends.
Oh, why?
Everything about that screams Legends. I can't really explain why. I mean, you could easily make an argument for that being High Republic.
Absolutely.
It's a very High Republic
Very
thing.
easy. But also part of me feels like that's just something a fan would come up with because they want to flesh out the story.
Gosh, what if one of the masters went missing? They would just be standing there for hours.
Yeah.
Or somebody slept in and forgot to turn on the alarm.
Slept in. Yoda, teenage version of Yoda, at 78 years old. He just
slept in.
He's like, sorry guys, slept in.
Overslept, don't you?
He's got to zoom in.
Exactly.
That's why Kiadi-Mundi was zoomed in. He overslept.
That's why they had to zoom these guys in, hyper or hologram zoom them in because they couldn't sit down until they showed up. So, so you're serious? You think Legends?
I think Legends. I mean, the whole mantra thing feels weird. The only mantra I know of in
I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me.
And that I don't even know if the Jedi really say that much. He was more of just a guardian of the wills. So it sounds Legends to me.
All right, Sam's made his statement. He was definitive. BB Nate.
I don't know. This does seem canon, just because it could be from the High Republic, and we have gotten other mantras. I remember there was one in Light of the Jedi.
There was. I can't remember what.
But I don't remember what it was. Oh, okay. She said it all the time, but I was also on and off listening to that
audiobook, driving, traveling.
Long book. It's probably
good.
Better if I read it, but no, I don't. It feels canon, but also feels like it could be from Legends, and I feel like the safer bet is to go with Legends, just because there's so much more Legends content than there is canon content.
Yeah, that's true.
So you're going with Legends or you're going with canon?
Can I do both?
Nope. Not. You got to pick one.
I don't know.
Make a decision. I know this is hard for you, BB Nate. You don't like to make decisions.
I hate making decisions.
Pick one or the other. Go.
Probably canon.
Canon. All right. So you've got canon.
Yeah.
And you've got Legends.
Yep.
That makes it interesting. I didn't cut out part of this, so that's last week. Legends. It is Legends. It is from the complete Star Wars Encyclopedia, the 1998 version, or excuse me, the 2008 version. I typed it in wrong. It is a reference book written by Steven Sansweet, Rancho Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Pablo Hidalgo.
It's canon then.
Bob Vitas, Daniel. It's 2008. It is before the reset. Daniel Wallace, Chris Cassidy, Mary Franklin, and Josh Cushins, and they are all. There's a lot of other contributors for the compendium. It is the second edition of the Star Wars Encyclopedia. The mantra that they would recite before seating was, "With all of us the Force may be, and may the peace of this temple be ours, a place open to thought and speech, a realm of mutual respect, and a haven of shared noble purpose. Let us take these seats together with no one above the others. May we work together, free from the restraints of ego and jealousy, at this gathering and all others to come." And they would speak that again as they would prepare.
Why don't we get this now?
I think
awesome.
we should say that before every recording of the podcast.
We should do the mantra before every no, because I am the ultimate authority in this podcast. So all right. I'm the Darth Sidious.
Hey, if we go back to the YouTube channel we did, I was the host.
You were the host?
So
but you weren't
power.
ever.
I have deleted every one of those episodes. Those were so bad.
They were terrible.
Horrible. Oh my gosh. And we actually would use Mike Zero as source.
As sources. Yeah.
We actually
that was a dark
period.
That was the dark
period.
That is the Legends version of our podcast. It became canon on December 1st of 2017.
If we ever have a slow news week like this again, we should just do a recap of our YouTube channel.
Oh my gosh, no.
Gosh,
all right, Samuel, why don't we move on?
Yeah. Secret Wars is a huge storyline in Marvel Comics, but a lot of people might not be familiar with its story or origins. So let's talk about 3 of the most influential Secret Wars in Marvel Comics history and how they might influence the upcoming Avengers Secret Wars.
Be on your guard. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world.
All right, then, keep your secrets. Your coming to us is as the footsteps of doom.
There are many magic rings in this world, Bilbo Baggins, and none of them should be used lightly.
Any of the trailers and stuff up yet for
I
She-Hulk?
still have not. I'm kind of excited to watch a series. I have no idea.
Yeah, I kind of curious for it too.
Yeah, I've watched one TV spot, and it was just because Daredevil was in it. So,
well, see, the reason I didn't watch it was because I didn't have time when it first released.
Yeah,
we were in
same.
a crazy period, and it was like 3 or 4 days in, and then I had lunch with a certain person. And you're listening to this podcast right now. You know who you are. And we're trying to get together for lunch this week. So listen to this podcast and schedule because you haven't scheduled yet. Anyway, I love you. I love you, dude. Anyway, he said that the CG was terrible.
That's what I've been hearing.
Yeah, the
too.
TV spot, it's very bad.
And I didn't want to watch it because I didn't want it to ruin my thoughts going into
same.
it. It's not that I was like against the She-Hulk series.
No.
I just literally didn't want to be like, negatively positioned going into watching it.
It looks just strange. Like
uncanny.
It's like that uncanny, but it's weird. But honestly, it's something that I can overlook.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be paying attention to the show. It's going to be
I want
weird
the story.
show.
See, when you're just watching a trailer, all you're seeing is shots and effects and stuff like that. And I wanted the story to be the story with it. And so that's why I chose not to watch it.
The TV spot didn't give me the story. So I have no idea what it is. I have no idea what I'm getting into.
I'm going into this just about
all
as
I
blind as
know
y'all
is that
are.
I'm getting a fourth wall breaking main character. And
Really?
Daredevil. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Oh,
she
she
breaks
does that in the comics.
So
all
do we
the
get
time.
Daredevil in this series?
Deadpool, you mean?
Deadpool, that's right. We
Maybe.
did get Daredevil.
We
in the
do get
series.
Daredevil.
I don't think they introduced
No. Okay.
Deadpool yet.
That would be a
but-
shock.
Yeah, that would be.
Do you think we get
surprising.
Spider-Man?
No, I don't think so.
If
Not
we get
yet.
Daredevil,
No,
could
I
happen.
think they would have to introduce Spider-Man and something else.
Echo. Ooh, Echo
It would
work.
so overshadow
Yeah,
the series.
see, it's got to be in something to where it fits better. Like I could see them bringing back in Spider-Man into the new Daredevil series.
That's so long, though.
Well-
I think Echo would work because that is
Anyway.
okay. Go ahead.
All right,
That's not what we're talking about.
With the announcement of an Avengers Secret Wars movie coming in the future, let's go over 3 of the most influential Secret Wars of the past and talk about what aspects could be.
This kind of seemed like the
adapted.
Crisis events.
They are.
They
yeah,
actually
it's
are.
very
Yeah, that's
similar.
what I was going to bring up. They're very similar, but the first
Shame on
one
Marvel.
was not on like that. Secret Wars 1 came out. It ran from 84 to 85. It was a 12-issue series, and it started as a way to sell toys.
And it sold a lot of
That's
toys.
literally it.
That's great.
A character
It's
from
like Transformers.
Right, honestly, that's what the TV show was for.
And it created a great story.
Right. But a character from Beyond, creatively named the Beyonder, brought all the characters together for a giant battle royale, basically. And that's about it. Now, before you write this off as being completely impossible to bring in to the MCU in any way, think back to movies like Civil War and Endgame. While they both did have pretty
Infinity
compelling
War,
stories, their success was largely due to the epic fights and A-list roster of characters. With Civil War even introducing 2 new characters into the MCU.
2 great characters.
Right, that have since blown up.
So who are they?
Spider-Man and Black Panther.
Black
were in
Panther,
Civil
you're
War.
right.
Yep.
And Zemo.
And Zemo, yeah, he's kind of blown up since then too. So it definitely brought in a lot of big stuff. But with all that said, do you think that the MCU's Secret Wars can rely solely on fan service and a massive roster of characters, or will they need to incorporate a compelling story as well?
They need to have a compelling story for the final movie in the multiverse saga. You can't just have a fan service movie. And I know that Endgame was kind of like that, but let's all be honest. Endgame had the amazing story with the sacrifice of Tony at the end, and the entire movie had a good story to it. Endgame was great. And so you can't cap off the multiverse saga with with Tobey Maguire coming back in a black suit or something like that.
Right.
That won't work. So they need to have something going for it, and I don't think that the first Secret Wars would do that.
I we've said it on the show before that we weren't really impressed with Infinity War, and I know that that's like shocking.
I
Saying that
enjoy
Jesus
it.
isn't the Son of God for some people, but
Endgame made Infinity War better.
Absolutely, Infinity War is a better movie.
Yes.
having seen Endgame and tying it all together. But we walked out of the theater watching Infinity War, and we're like, fine. It was a great movie, great, good story,
great,
but nothing surprising happened in that movie.
Nope.
If you knew anything about Infinity War, you knew what was going to happen. The comic series, you knew what was going to happen.
Well, and we knew that another movie was coming out afterwards.
Exactly.
So
I think that if for Secret Wars to work, they have to set up a very compelling story, and they have to grab
in the
us
King Dynasty
because
movie.
the bar is set so high. Endgame is the number one movie of all time. I mean, it is.
So they re-release Avatar this September.
Well, right, exactly. But I mean, it's the bar is set super high, and they've got. It's going to take a lot to try to keep up, even come close to that.
Yeah. Now for Secret Wars 2, this came out the next year, ran from 85 to 86. But this one had a little bit more of an impact on the MCU or on the Marvel Comics, more than the first one. Despite the first Secret Wars lack of a compelling story, it was still a massive success, and people demanded a sequel. So in this, the Beyonder takes physical form and kind of goes about trying to learn the meaning of life and things like that.
Aren't we all?
And from this series, popular stories emerged, such as The New Mutants, the good comic one, not that weird movie that nobody ended up watching.
Even us.
I still haven't watched it. But with this movie, like you mentioned, Dad, with the Avengers Secret Wars seeming to be the new end game of these next phases, right? This next saga. What stories do you think they should/could set up from Secret Wars?
Gosh, it's difficult to think about because we don't know a ton of the comics of Marvel. If you're asking about DC, I could be all over this.
Right.
And I'm trying to get into Marvel Comics slowly but surely. And I just don't know of many events that could take place from this. I mean, it's difficult to think of any right now. I can't think
What
of
about characters do you think they could introduce from this?
Characters?
Well, I think they're already telling us what characters they're going to introduce.
From the movie, from Secret Wars.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Secret Wars to be able to determine that. I want to say that isn't Madam Web somehow tied, like closely
she's tied to the Spider-Verse a lot.
I can't remember. I didn't really see anything, but it really wouldn't surprise me if she ends up being brought into this just because of the whole multiverse aspect and different universes clashing together and stuff like that.
See, in the Marvel animated universe, she's the one that does this. It's not. I mean, she's a big part of this.
Was that like the Spectacular Spider-Man show or something?
They're like the '90s Spider-Man. When they did the Secret Wars story, she was a critical element.
Gosh, what if we got an
along with
movie?
The Beyonder? So I'm looking it up right now on the Marvel wiki with it, and it says the Secret Wars was a conflict to test for Spider-Man by the Beyonder and Madam Web. The two cosmic entities needed to see if the Earth hero was strong enough to lead the Spider-Man in the upcoming Spider War. And so there was this like
I need to watch that episode.
It's a great series. And so when I think of Secret Wars, my mind goes to Madam Web. Well, Madam Web is a huge part of the stories
getting a movie
in the Sonyverse, which then you tie in Carnage, you tie in Venom, you tie in Andrew
Morbius,
Garfield, you tie in Morbius, you tie in Tobey Maguire, and there's stories that potentially there could be a Tobey Maguire movie with Kirsten Dunst older, and they have a daughter, and she's Spider.
They better not have a movie before
Spider Girl,
Spider-Man 3.
All this. I mean, so there's some of those rumors out there. So I think that's kind of what.
And right now, that seems like the most likely, due to the fact that people are saying that Spider-Man's going to be the big person in this saga, the Iron Man.
He is the Iron Man of this saga. Yeah,
and so
nobody knows about him right now, though.
Well, that's what makes it interesting.
But we need to. Phase 4 is just frustrating.
Now, interestingly, I didn't plan this when you brought this up, but I had a suggestion for a major comic story that they could start setting up for the future. Right? We have the Infinity Saga. Now we're having the Multiverse Saga. Next would be this is a pretty recent run in the comics, but it was huge. It was The King in Black, and this was the sequel to Absolute Carnage, which I think is where Carnage just took over like a bunch of the different characters.
That was also a big event.
So Null, the god and creator of symbiotes, comes to Earth with a horde of symbiotes, and the Avengers, Fantastic Four, Venom, and other Marvel heroes now have to join forces to resist the army. Now, obviously, that sounds pretty lame.
but it's a cool idea.
But
especially
they could set it up
when
really
you tie
well.
in the Sonyverse.
Exactly. You have Madam Web and all that tied in.
And you get the symbiote saga.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the symbiote saga would be super cool. You have the symbiote corrupting.
Mark this date.
We called it.
We did.
August 16th, 2022. Week predicted the symbiote saga.
And I think this series ran in like 2020, 2021.
Yeah, it was a big deal. I remember.
So like that would be a really quick leap to the MCU.
But I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's a Spider-Man focused.
That's true.
And I mean, I'm sure this. I'm almost 100% sure Spider-Man's going to die at the end of the saga.
No, I don't think so.
I just and it's going to have to get transferred to somebody else, like a Miles Morales maybe will be getting in or something from the Spider. Maybe
it would actually be a cool storyline if that does happen.
Yes,
and
but it would
Morales
just that would just cement even further the Tony Stark Jr. idea if he dies at the end of another movie.
That's true.
But I mean, I get where you're coming from.
It feels so good, Peter.
Right,
we have the whole thing.
So
we won. It's okay, Mr. Parker.
Well, all right. You get your notes ready.
Yeah,
Let's go.
But the most likely one that they'll probably adapt the most from is Secret Wars 2015. This is the one that pretty much everybody regards as the best.
Yeah, I remember reading the first issue of this.
We got it for free for comic book day. Yep. I actually kind of want to find a way to pick up this whole series. I think
I can find a way for you to do that.
You got connections. You know people. I'll read Den of Geek's summary of this series verbatim, as they do a pretty good job of explaining it, and I pretty much stole everything from their article, and I feel like they deserve credit.
Yeah.
So this is the start of the quote. Incursions. I don't know. That's kind of should sound familiar. Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness.
That's
anyway, occur when Earths from two different universes intersect. If the Earths touch, then both universes get destroyed, leading the heroes to find ways of keeping the Earths apart, or destroying the other Earth to save their own. By the time Secret Wars begins, Doctor Doom has found a way to use the incursions to recreate the universe in his own image. In this universe, the heroes and villains all live in different regions called battle worlds, while Doom rules over all as the God Emperor. Only a group of surviving heroes, including Doom's archenemy, Mr. Fantastic, can oppose him. Side note, Nate, this one is patterned after Crisis on Infinite
This one's
Earths.
patterned after Dark Crisis. Like,
really?
Well, the wait.
That's the one running right now.
Well, then Dark Crisis is patterned after that.
Well, also Crisis on Infinite Earths had that happen, but right now this is like the same.
Really?
Yeah, Crisis on Infinite Earths did have the ability of the two different multiverses and all that stuff colliding and everything, and then they did destroy the other multiverse to save their own, which is this. But in Dark Crisis, there is Pariah who's wanting to use to merge the other universe and make his universe the main one. Okay. So I guess you could say both have been doing it, but I guess DC did. I don't know. It's weird, but yeah, that is very much a Crisis on Infinite Earths story. But I don't know. I'm happy about Doom because
it feels like all the players are on the board for this,
right? I mean,
exactly.
We've seen aspects of this story already introduced in the MCU. We've got incursions and Multiverse of Madness. Obviously, that's huge right there. We know that there's an abundance of different multiverses, from Multiverse of Madness, Loki, and Spider-Man No Way Home. And we even got Mr. Fantastic in Multiverse of Madness. It feels like Multiverse of Madness just set up so much stuff.
It does. It feels like it's a lot more important movie than we gave it credit for.
And it brought in Mr. Fantastic, which obviously sets up Doctor Doom.
They better keep that casting for Mr. Fantastic.
Oh, they better. I think they'd be really foolish if they didn't. But based on what we've been seeing in the MCU lately, do you think that this could be the direction they're going with the story?
It feels like this is it.
Do you like this possibility?
Yeah, I'm cool with it. I'm totally cool with it. I think that they could combine this with some stuff in some of the previous Secret Wars arcs, especially, even the comic or the cartoon, the animated stuff where they bring in Madam Web. I do think that they want to bring in the Sony Spider-Verse.
Yes.
They want to do this, but they also have to be careful about waiting for the contract to get worked out, waiting for them to get this all nailed down. So they've got to let that do its own thing and then be ready to bring it in, and they can do that through something like this, the Secret Wars.
Yeah, I like this. If they do this, I think it is very possible. I think it'll be fun. It sounds like a big event. I just have one problem. I mean, this is going to be the end game to the Kang Dynasty movie. Mm-hmm. So how can this connect with Kang? I mean,
well, Kang is the great grandson or something of Mr. Fantastic.
That's true.
So they could easily find a way to connect. That just seems
like a thread that would be very difficult to pull to set up a whole movie for.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I'm sure that they can figure it out, of course, but I'm wondering just how that'll happen. But I'm excited. This would be great. I think that it would be a lot of fun, and I don't know. A lot of stuff could come from it if they do it right.
If they've proven anything with the MCU, is Kevin Feige has a plan. And he's moving it forward, and I can't wait to see how it plays out. And we may criticize pieces of it in the future, but in the end, I think that we're going to enjoy being able to watch this happen. So,
one final question: if you could if you could have one thing happen or be in this movie, what would it be, Nate?
I'd love to see the characters from Into the Spider-Verse crossover.
That would
want
be
a
cool.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit kind of thing going on.
Like you want them to remain animated.
I want them in the animated, but in the live
like
action.
it.
I'd love to see that.
Because
that would be so weird, but so much fun.
It would fit. I think they could make it work.
I want to see the 2099 Spider-Man in it. I want to see Miles Morales. I want all of that to just come in, and I want
throw in PS4 Spider-Man.
You
too,
throw in PS4 Spider-Man, and you throw in PS4 Miles Morales as well, and you throw all those characters in. You throw in the Spider-Man from the other universes. You got Tom Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland. You have all the Spider-Man.
The 70s TV version?
You have every single one. You have
what about the Electric
Spider-Man.
Company Spider-Man?
You have I don't know.
What about the Electric Company Spider-Man? It was the only reason I watched that PBS show. The Electric Company was like once every third or fourth episode, there was a segment at the very end of the episode that was a Spider-Man segment. And I would watch it just because I wanted to watch Spider-Man. And I'd be so bummed when it wouldn't be that segment. They wouldn't be on that episode.
Yeah. But you get Japanese Spider-Man in there, the really weird one. And then you have like just a shot with all the Spider-Man there. That'd be just so much fun. I'd love to see that.
And game level shot of all the different
No Way
versions
Home.
of Spider-Man.
Yes, like No Way Home with the 3, but just with all these Spider-Man.
With 30 of them.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd love that.
Dad?
I mean, I was going to say, I was going to see a live action Miles Morales, but the same character from the Into the Spider-Verse, but in live action version. So, I mean, Nathan wants to have him animated. I just want to see him cross over.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I would love to see a endgame level shot where you've got tons of the characters from the MCU that we've seen before, like in Endgame, but you throw in the Sonyverse characters, Marvel or Venom, Carnage, all the Spider-Man. I like the idea of having the animated Spider-Man in there.
The Eddie Brock from Venom.
Right, that's what I was saying. Yeah, Venom. You could even throw in.
I meant the Eddie Brock.
Cletus Cassidy.
No, the one from the Jesus Told Me to Leave.
Oh, Spider-Man 3.
Yes.
Yeah. Sure. Throw him in there.
Topher Grace.
Throw in the X-Men too. I want to see all the X-Men next to him. I mean,
every one of the Fantastic Four movies.
You just have Hugh Jackman.
Maybe the new ones.
the Lou Ferrigno Hulk.
Huh?
And
not the 2000
and the Thor and the Captain America from that series. No. Okay.
But
have I gone too far?
Yes, you got too far. But I want to see a shot of everyone like that. But I also would like to see
Daredevil.
No, maybe.
Jennifer Garner Electra.
But one thing that I think would be cool is if they brought in variants of classic characters that we love.
Crokey.
Oh, sure, bring in Crokey, but I'm talking a version of Captain America who's come back somehow through the multiverse. A version of Iron Man who's come back through the multiverse.
You just want to see Iron Man again.
Yeah, I would. I would. But I think they can do that. Have a version of Black Widow come back too and make all those fans happy too. Whatever character is going to die in this next series.
The only problem with that is you can't bring in a Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah, and I think that would be sad.
Work,
no.
So.
But I think you could bring back all the other well-loved characters in a way with the original actors.
Hawkeye.
Huh?
Bring in an old man Hawkeye.
Yeah, have Hawkeye be like super old or something. I mean, you could have all these really cool versions of our characters or characters we haven't seen yet next to other characters, and it'd be this just absolutely monumental event, somehow even surpassing Endgame. I think if they play their cards right, which I think Marvel knows what they're doing.
They do.
I think they could have something really special.
I like DC. Love you, Nathan. Are we done?
I mean, it's amazing how Marvel just rips off DC and then does it better. No,
Nathan's triggered.
And on that note, while we may be way ahead of the curve on this movie, it's still exciting to think about all the potential it has for such an amazing event. Star Wars, Secret Wars. It's SW.
You could bring in Luke Skywalker even.
Sure, throw him in there. They watch Star Wars in the MCU, so it's
Omniverse.
Omniverse, yeah. It's slated to release in November of 2025, which is so far away, which means there's plenty of time for speculation and lots of headcanon until then.
More than 3 years away.
That's insane.
That is crazy. All right. Well, good job. Good segment.
Thank you.
Did a good job.
Appreciate it.
It's another week where we'll probably skip going to the cinema unless there's like an ET movie, which there isn't this weekend.
There actually is. They're releasing it, I think, in regular cinemas.
What about Top Gun?
We could go see that again. We'll talk about that in a second. Don't sleep on the new trailers, though, that came out. Did you watch any of those?
I did.
Yeah. They look fantastic. That's next on Movie Moments.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge.
All right, first release this week, Beast, which I actually watched a trailer for this, and it just looks...
Any relation to Split?
No.
It just
and
looks...
it's nothing to do with Beast from the
X-Men. Yeah,
X-Men? Dang.
It just looks really weird.
Beast?
Maybe.
It's just Jurassic Park with a single lion.
That's
all right.
Not very exciting.
Yeah. This is about Dr. Nate Samuels, kind of a funny name, is recently...
Whoa, wait, it just triggered me. I didn't realize
You
that.
didn't?
Nate Samuels.
Yeah, you didn't get that?
Whoa.
That's weird.
We gotta go see it now.
Yeah, of course. Dr.
really.
Nate Samuels is a recently widowed husband who returns to South Africa, where he first met his wife,
named Christy,
on a long planned trip with their daughters to a game reserve. But what begins as a journey of healing jolts into a fearsome fight for survival when a lion, a survivor of bloodthirsty poachers who now sees all humans as the enemy, begins stalking them. The director is Scott Mann. I think I've heard that before. The cast is Idris Elba, Yana Haley, and Leah Jeffries.
Yeah.
Something the studio is Universal. It is rated R for violent content, bloody images, and some language. Going yes or no?
Probably not.
No, I didn't even know this movie was coming out until I wrote the notes. So.
But
really?
I think if you're into that kind of movie, it sounds interesting. I mean, it'd be a fun little thriller, creature kind of Jaws kind of story.
We'll see this. We'll see Top Gun before we see this.
Yeah, we will. This next one, we won't see at all. Dragon Ball Superhero is about the Red Ribbon Army was once destroyed by Son Goku. Individuals who carry on its spirit have created the ultimate androids, Gamma 1 and Gamma 2. Really original names.
Like
these two androids call themselves superheroes. Wow, original. They start attacking Piccolo and
stuff.
I know.
You don't just because you don't like something doesn't mean that they can't.
I'm just saying.
I apologize on behalf of the show for
I'm not
Nate's
saying
insensitivity.
I'm not bogging down on it. It's just really original, creative names.
Okay.
Well, it's like the Beyonder in Marvel.
It's true. No, I'm not saying that.
Spider-Man is original.
I'm not
Iron
saying
Man?
that those are great names. I'm just saying.
Okay.
It's 2022. They start attacking Piccolo and Gohan.
Okay.
What is the new Red Ribbon Army's objective in the face of approaching danger? It is time to awaken superhero. I don't know what this is about.
Piccolo an instrument?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
The director is Tetsuro Kodama. The cast is Masako Nozawa, Toshio Furukawa, and Yuko
Minaguchi.
You just added this to make this difficult. Yes, you
did.
You did
this just to make you say those names.
The studio's Crunchyroll is rated PG-13 for some action, violence, and smoking. We're not going to see this.
Crunchyroll is a streaming service.
It's a studio kind of thing.
We're not watching that.
Yeah, for trailers, Bandit, it looked fun.
I liked Bandit.
I don't know. Just the rating kind of puts me off of it. So basically, it's just the guy who robs banks, and Mel Gibson's in it.
It looks fun to me. It looked like fun to me.
It did look fun. So. This next one, though, I actually think that this looks like a lot of fun. The Menu.
This is bizarre.
It's bizarre, that's for sure. But it has a weird comedy element to it as well.
It's this super chef has like this super exclusive, like invite only dinner.
Like to an island,
like hundreds of thousands of dollars per ticket, and they go to this special island, and he's like trying to kill them all. Like it's it's like Hunger Games at this point.
It does sound kind of interesting.
And the main character knows it's happening when she gets there. Basically, she knows.
She goes anyway.
She knows something's up when she gets there, and so she's trying to figure it out.
It's the same girl from
Split,
and
Glass.
Queen's Gambit and Glass.
Yeah, and all those.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like Clue mixed with.
It looks interesting.
Yeah, and then it has a comedy element. Like the last clip from the trailer was genuinely funny.
Yeah. Kind of like Knives Out.
Yeah, it seems really interesting. I'm actually excited for it. For box office results this weekend, Bullet Train 13.4 million domestic. I think Dad forgot to change the last two.
It was supposed to be
7.
It was I don't remember. It was. I mean, I can look it up
because I'm pretty sure Top Gun Maverick hit second place this week.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No. Maverick didn't hit second place. No, it didn't. It was DC League of Super Pets was second place. I saw it. I just looked at it. So it got 7 million, just over. Oh, you're right. It changed.
It
changed
Nathan
after I did this.
Nathan.
Whoa, they updated it since I did this. Good job, BB Nate.
I know what I'm talking about.
So go for it.
Yes, Top Gun Maverick made $7 million and
just over
2,000, while DC League of Super Pets made $7 million and 3,000. So it was a close race. But Top Gun Maverick somehow
is just
and it's like I think it's like it's
about to surpass Infinity War.
That's incredible.
It's insane. That's crazy. It's not a superhero movie. It's not a big Disney movie.
It's a
reboot. It's a sequel to a movie that came out 30 years ago. It's crazy.
People enjoy that kind of movie.
It's just a fun.
It's positive. It has no agenda. It's just let's have
even
fun.
the bad guys, you can't politicize.
You don't even
the bad
know
guys.
who the bad guys
They're
are.
not of a nation. They're just the bad guys who got some uranium, and we need to stop them. I'm like,
and it's a Star Wars movie too.
Yeah, I mean, basically.
All right, is that it? Are we done?
That's it.
It's on you.
It's on me. Is it my turn?
Yeah, it's your turn.
All right, I'm not used to going at the end, so I get confused here.
I had a Star Wars segment this week.
You did talk Star Wars. We're going to talk a little bit of Star Wars, but not the same. Yeah, we took some, but it is weird not having a Star Wars segment. Anyway, we took some time.
A Star Wars segment.
I know, mine didn't. We took some time over the past couple of weeks to watch the 6-episode Light and Magic series on Disney Plus. We've talked about it a lot. While it's all about the history of industrial light and magic, for me, I think it's more about how a simple sentence can change the world.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
I know that we have to continuously talk about George Lucas in this segment.
Of course, always.
But I do think that it's important for us to acknowledge how central Kathleen
impactful.
Kennedy
was
to the future, to movie making history, and all these major films with it. You know, we need to back off with the Kathleen Kennedy. We don't do it, but other people should just kind of back off with the Kathleen Kennedy stuff. She deserves everything, and she was actually handpicked by George, so it was good. All right, overall thoughts on the series, just in general. What'd you think about the Light and Magic series, Sam?
I thought it was really, really interesting. Just everything that they went through to get where they are now, all the innovation they came up with. I mean, the people were brilliant. I mean, it was just incredible what they were coming up with. And like you said, and you're going to talk about, I mean, they absolutely changed filmmaking forever. I mean, without George Lucas, ILM, and Star Wars, movies would not be what they are today without.
No. And it was a good series. I'm not one for documentaries, but this was super interesting just because it was about movies and everything. But I don't know. It was awesome to hear the stories about the people at ILM and how that got started and how all the trials that they went through and all this. It was really interesting. I enjoyed it.
I loved it. I thought it was super fascinating to see stories we'd heard, things I'd known about, but to hear them, these stories being told by the actual people involved and some of the nuance in the way that they described things and the personalities behind it. And then to see things like, I knew Joe Johnson was a legend, but to see that he was just an artist that sort of weaseled his way into industrial light and magic to get started, and that changed the world. And then to see how George Lucas was like, give this guy a shot with it. The stories like that, Phil Tippett and Dennis Murin and their how they basically are best friends with it, and then some of the tension that happened as technology changed, and Dennis Murin was leading that with it. It was definitely a big part of things. So let's talk about it kind of episode to episode. We won't spend a ton of time on each episode, but I do want to get some initial or some quick thoughts for each one of these. The first episode is Gang of Outsiders. The description was an unlikely team comes together to create the effects for a new space film called The Star Wars. You may have heard of it. The stories about these guys and their innovation and antics are already legendary. We've talked about that already. But did anything surprise you about the creation of ILM for the original Star Wars?
I mean, first off, it does kind of almost feel like the story of Star Wars anyway. It's a ragtag team of people brought together just haphazardly, and they complete the goal. I can't remember much specifically about this first episode. I think it's probably a good thing that the series kind of it really flows between each episode. You could cut them all together and it would be seamless. So I'm trying to remember of anything specifically, but I mean, just them having to like come up with the motion rig for the
and stuff.
Well, yeah, for the camera, so they could do the same shot over and over again and it still be consistent. And just that was fascinating that they had to like create completely brand new technology for this movie that was everybody thought was going to flop anyway.
Right. What about you, Nate?
I don't know. There was a lot of cool moments. I mean, one of the moments that stuck out to me was how they had to take the Death Star surface outside in the parking lot and use a truck to film the scenes of the explosion.
Yeah, drive like 20 miles an hour.
It's crazy. I mean, that's not something you would think about now. And they thought about it, and it worked. It's a great shot, and everything about it is well done. But that was insane to see. That was cool, and just how fun they had. How much fun they had.
Yeah,
the slip and slide.
Yeah, it was a party, man.
They had a hot tub every like Tuesday or something like that. It was crazy.
That's awesome. So that next episode was on the Bucking Bronco. The description was George Lucas's whole life has been leading to Star Wars, but can ILM finish the job on time? And this episode really begins to reveal the tension between John Dykstra and George Lucas. What's clear is that Star Wars wouldn't have happened without both of them. So how do you feel about the way that George Lucas handled the effects process after returning to Los Angeles upon the completion of principal photography in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, he was just, I feel like how they portrayed it on the ILM show is that he was super nervous and he was really ratting down on the ILM and how they weren't working on it all and all. But I think that if we need to look at it from George's perspective, this is a last ditch effort in his career of directing. If this fails, he's not going to direct movies anymore because there's just no studio will pick him up. No studio's picked him up for this movie barely. And so if this doesn't work out, his career is on the line, and his career is on the line for the effects, and it's out of his control on whether or not they do it. So it's a difficult place, and nothing was working. The scenes in the filming were difficult. They kept having to reshoot. The acting wasn't going right. Everything just kind of was like just going wrong. And then he finds out that they're delayed on the effects process, which is probably the biggest part of the movie and took up the biggest part of the budget. I would be nervous too. I'd be freaking out. So I think we need to give him a break. He had a lot on his shoulders.
All right. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand where George would be coming from, but you have to think about what the effects artists were going through for this too. I mean, that's obviously what they highlight in this show, but I mean, they were having to do some absolutely intricate things to make it work and come up with these hugely detailed sets. I remember them talking about, like, to make the scale feel right on things like the Star Destroyer, they had to add in, I mean, absolutely tiny windows and doors on the sides to make it feel to scale, right? I mean, they had to do such intricate work and make multiple copies of the models and come up with brand new technology. I don't blame them for being behind.
Yeah, no.
They wanted to do it right. That's part of the reason why they were so behind. And that's why it frustrated George. But, I mean, you have to understand where they're coming from, too.
Yeah, they had to spend a whole year basically creating the technology in order to make the shots work in the first place.
Yeah, no, I get it, though.
Third episode was called Just Think About It. ILM moves north to face a daunting task, creating a sequel to the most successful film of all time.
No pressure.
The pressure to follow up and improve upon their revolutionary effects in Star Wars couldn't have been greater. Going into Empire, it seemed that every time George wanted something to happen, the ILM team thought it just couldn't be done. Why do you think they still tried to figure out how to do it when George would just ask them to just go think about it?
Well, I mean, they're innovators, they're creators. I think it's just kind of part of the drive. Personally, you know, as in a way, if you think about their job, it's not very dissimilar from an engineer. I mean, you have to problem solve, come up with a solution, and implement the solution. And, you know, if somebody came to me with a seemingly impossible task, I would initially think of all the ways it just couldn't happen. This is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem, right? Because that's our job. We have to figure out what the problems are and fix the problems. But when George says, just think about it, you go back and you think about, okay, well, maybe we can fix this problem. Oh, maybe we can fix this problem, right? It just gives you the space you need to get out of your own head for a minute and really think about how you can fix the problem. So I totally get where they're coming from with it. I mean, the things they were having to come up with, like the whole tauntaun on the moving ice,
Right.
that's a crazy complicated. They didn't have like point tracking software like we do now. I mean, now it'd be easy to overlay a shot over moving terrain, but back then they didn't have that. They had to move it perfectly with there. So I definitely understand where they're coming from, but George kind of being that encouraging, like, yeah, it's tough. Go think about it. Gave them the space they needed.
That's cool.
Yeah, he was never like, well, if it's just not going to work out, then give up. He was like, just take some time to think about it. And they wanted to think about it, and they just came up with ideas. And that thinking about it, Hella was like, okay, this could work. This could work. And then it happened. We got some amazing effects that still hold up today from this movie. It's a fantastic movie. And so it was crazy. I also found in this episode, it was funny. They had the documentary person come in for the interview.
Oh, yeah, that's
And they were
right.
just playing with the stop motion stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because they didn't know what to do because this process wouldn't look good for the camera. And they didn't want to reveal how it was done, so they were just kind of moving pieces.
Yeah, random
Walter Cronkite standing there with them,
exactly.
going
Random rulers and crap out there.
It was great. I thought that was funny.
I also think it's important. You talk about them wanting to go and make it, figure it out, but also I think that is a testament to their trust in George and their desire to please him. As a leader, they wanted to figure this out for him with that. The next one is another one of those great sentences. I think I found my people. It's the era of the 80s blockbuster, and ILM is thriving, but revolution is on the horizon. And my ears perked up immediately when John Knoll said this about his visit to ILM as a 15-year-old kid. It was the same thing that we said when we attended our first Star Wars celebration. We think we found our people with that. What were your thoughts when you heard of his story of how he first connected with ILM?
It was
as a 15-year-old kid.
It was kind of funny. I mean, he found a number in like a newspaper at a hotel when he was down there.
They were on a trip to California.
And
they weren't
so
even
he
there
called
for
him,
that.
and they're like, yeah, we'll set up a tour. And he went there, and he got a tour of ILM, which is something that would never happen
And
today.
not just like a tour of the offices. Like they showed them
everything.
He spent all day with them.
Yeah,
Exactly,
they showed
which is
them
crazy.
the movie process, the making
Which
process.
is awesome, man. I mean,
It changed the world.
It changed the world. It changed his whole career. He went into that, and he did so many amazing things just from that one
Photoshop.
tour. Right. It's kind of a big deal. I mean, it's crazy. Because of that one tour, CGI is now a thing. And that's something insane to think about. Just because he spent a day at ILM because he wanted on a whim to call them and see if he could.
And his parents set it up and allowed him to
crazy.
do it. Yeah. It was crazy. I thought of Nathan with it. I'm like, that would be, if only Nathan could have a similar opportunity.
A day to spend the day at Skywalker Sound.
Yeah, something like that.
Hang out with David Collins and Matthew Wood and
Happy birthday, Matthew Wood.
Yeah, happy birthday. It's his birthday when we're recording this. Yeah.
So yeah, but it's just cool to see how he's a kid, but they didn't immediately turn him away because he's a kid. He's 15. I mean, by all right, he could just be some goofy little kid, but they saw potential in him and they fostered it instead of turning him away.
That's awesome. Next episode, Morphing. The digital age brings new challenges to ILM, but not everyone is ready for such massive change. This episode was actually a little bit sad as we saw Phil Tippett and some others share their story of how the Creature Shop basically went away overnight. It seemed like, it felt like, at least, with the amazing improvements in CG. I never sensed that there was any animosity between them. I think there was hurt and there was disappointment, but not necessarily anger and animosity between the groups. What stood out to you about how they handled Phil after Jurassic Park changed filmmaking forever?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely sad to see that story, but I really appreciated how they didn't just kick him to the curb. They realized he still had things to contribute, and they made that mocap suit for a dinosaur basically, which was super interesting. I never thought of
a robotic mocap.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So he could still do his physical hands-on work, but it still translated to CGI at the same time. So I found it cool how they were able to integrate. It's kind of like teaching an old dog new tricks in a way without teaching him the new tricks. So I thought it was cool how they did that. Although I'm sure it's still pretty sad for him in his career later on.
Yeah, you could see it in him.
Yeah,
he was sad for sure.
Definitely. I mean, I thought it was awesome how they still wanted to include him because they understood that he worked on this movie before and he knew what he wanted to do, and so might as well use that knowledge and what he's already spent so much time on to make the movie as good as it could be. And it was a fantastic movie, and so him being on this project helped make it what it is. I mean, the kitchen scene, he already had us test for it.
Yeah.
With the Velociraptors in stop motion, and then he put that into CGI, and that is a insanely famous scene from that movie.
And beautiful. It still holds up today.
The CG is incredible. I couldn't tell. Like, it's tough for me sometimes to tell whether they were using a puppet, because I know they use a puppet sometimes, or CG. I mean, it's incredible.
It was great.
Yeah. Last episode of it was No More Pretending You're Dinosaurs. CG finally comes into its own with Jurassic Park, paving the way for a new era of innovation. The thing I was most surprised by is how visual effects teams are actually returning to practical effects and then marrying them with CG to make even more spectacular and realistic shots. Jon Favreau spends a lot of time talking about that in reference to the Mandalorian. The volume is a very important example of this, but there have been some fans that have been critical of a lot of shots in The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi, saying you can tell that it's in the volume. It doesn't look as real. Why do you think that this is happening?
I think that it's people that know that they're using a volume and they look for it now.
Yeah,
they're wanting to see the flaws. It's like a lot of people. It's like a magic trick. People want to see the secret, and so, I mean, you go up to somebody who's saying this and you'd be like, well, did you know that the Batman used the volume for most of its shots? I didn't know that. It did. A lot of its shots were in the volume. Bullet Train, the whole thing was filmed in the volume. So people didn't know that. So it's crazy to go in and say that, and because people don't know that it was used for those things.
Yeah, it's on. Go ahead. You say what you're going to say. Sam.
I mean, I didn't know Obi-Wan Kenobi was filmed in the volume. Yeah, no clue. I had no idea Batman was in the volume. I think it's silly that people are saying they can see it because Nathan's right. They're looking for it. I would have never known. I know the volume exists. I know it's a thing, and I know it's changed filmmaking because I could not tell when it was being used or not because it is that good. I mean, it is such an incredible design and system. I think people are just being silly about it because fans are always going to find something to complain about.
I think that they've become victims of their own desire to show you behind the scenes. If they never told us about the volume and went into the details, we wouldn't have known a lot of those things.
That's true.
And we probably wouldn't have reacted the way that our fans wouldn't have reacted the way they did to that.
I think it's silly. I think the volume is incredible.
It is. All right. I guess let's finish this episode out with the dad moment.
I am your father.
I have been fascinated with George Lucas for years. I mean, I've read several biographies about him. I've watched countless documentaries and videos, but really it's not his filmmaking genius that captivates me. It's his amazing leadership. He sees things decades before the rest of the world sees them. He knows what people are capable of, even when they don't. And instead of strong-arming them or backing them into a corner, his gentle, calm demeanor makes these people want to strive for these capabilities. He said it several times during this series. There's a whole episode named after that. Just think about it. I'm convinced that people could accomplish infinitely more than they actually believe they can by simply being encouraged to step back and think of how it might actually be possible. The series is one of the best things that we've watched on streaming in a very long time. And I highly encourage you to turn off your phones, grab some popcorn, sit down with your family, and be inspired by it.
Definitely.
All right.
Good segment.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I appreciate it. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Anything else?
Yeah, Emilia Clarke's MCU character has reportedly been revealed.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
so.
some Skrull who helps aid in the invasion in Secret Invasion comic book series, but ends up abandoning her side to aid in humanity because she realizes her side can be pretty brutal.
So she flipped sides.
Yeah,
all
but
right. Interesting. Kira flipped sides. Never would have saw that coming. All right,
just in the reverse.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, Warner Brothers is weighing the fate of The Flash as its Ezra Miller problem grows.
It's pretty bad.
It's very bad.
Isn't he running around with like body armor and stuff?
Well, no, he's been
that was old news. Now he's been charged with a felony.
In
Vermont.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I forget what it was felony.
He was just trying to scheme.
Robbing some family's liquor cabinet.
That's right. Yeah, he broke into a house and robbed family's liquor cabinet. This dude
needs help.
Yes, he needs help.
Seriously, and I don't say that
seriously, yeah.
He really needs some help with it. Mark Ruffalo says that there's no such thing as too much MCU, but Star Wars gets repetitive.
I feel like he might have a little bias
there.
Well, it's funny because Obi-Wan Kenobi today, Ewan McGregor was asked if he would ever consider being in the MCU, and he's like, I don't think I would. I don't think I want to be in the MCU. So, nobody's making a big deal out of that.
I think they have the bias there.
With it. Well, I guess that's going to do it for this week. Good episode, guys.
Good episode.
Congratulations. That was fun.
Yes.
And thank you for listening to all of you out there listening to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. We appreciate it.
Yeah. If you had a good time listening, it would be awesome if you could share this with your friends.
Yeah. And the show is only a small part of the Tatooine Sons world. So be sure to like us on Facebook, join our Facebook discussion group, and follow us on Twitter to get in on all the action. And you can keep up to date with everything we got going on at TatooineSons.com.
That's right. Don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss our next episode. And please give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts. You can give us ratings on Spotify Podcasts. You can do that now. I figured out how to do it. Or you can
Would you give us a rating?
I did, actually. 4 stars. I give us 5 because we're awesome. Anyway, give us a rating and a review on whatever podcast app you prefer. We'd appreciate that. All right. Anything else you guys would like to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Joy, please.
Yep, yep.